Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hi there, it's Gemma, and this is episode number 262 of the new series of the Cognitive Podcast. Your comments are very welcome. Please feel free to leave them on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or you can send them over to our group on Ravelry. In the warm thanks department, I think the big thank you, there's a lot of them in first place here, so I'm just going to do them in no particular order. First, I want to thank Laura of Dizzy Blonde Studios. When I was at the SoCal Fiber Festival, I special ordered a colorway from her. And we agreed on what it was, and she said, well, I don't have it on the base you want, and we sort of, worked on this and compromised, and I paid her and I walked away. And I totally forgot about it. She did not, and I'm very lucky to say that. What she did was she said, I don't remember which color it was, and I said, oh gosh, neither do I. Anyway, we ended up talking, and I went to her website, and I picked out 2 skeins that she had on discount, but even so, it's 2 skeins I got basically for the price of one. And they're both gorgeous. They're on Lamy toes, which I believe is Corriedale and nylon. And you can see the picture of them in the show notes, which means, yes, the stash toss was increased on the inside by 2. I'll come back to that. And meanwhile, our own Beth, alias Plexipa, who I think I've called Plexlipa in the past because I've got some stutter or something. But anyway, Beth, hooray! Hooray, hooray! Beth has joined the parade at CFR 11.5 in February. So that's a very happy thing. And speaking of which, our own Marianne, Sustainable Living, I'm just going to quote the whole thing, says, I could teach 1 pass brioche if there was an interest. Of course, there's an interest. I haven't done brioche in years, and I'd really like to see somebody do it. Or, going back to what Marianne said, or she could teach mosaic knitting. Or if she pushed herself, let's say that in English, Gemma. Or if she pushes herself, she could teach mosaic crochet. And she says she is a continental knitter, and that's the method for 1 pass brioche that she knows. Did I mention I don't know any methods for this? She also talks about teaching backward knitting, which is amazing for heel flaps because you don't have to turn the work. It's also great for intarsia, I'm just going to say. And then we could do a laughter yoga session. Laughter yoga is something she told us about that I'd never heard about that just sounds delightful. We discussed it at CFR 11. So we have some classes. It looks like our own Marianne's teaching everything if someone else doesn't step up, but that's okay because I know we got a lot of people who could teach. Meanwhile, I want to thank my communities on Finch, on Reddit, on the ground in the Santa Clarita Valley and the Antelope Valley, and most important of all, in this group. You can see a picture of my 2 burbs. They're in London in their bathrobes. They've just woken up in a really charming bed and breakfast. Pretty hard to tell where they are. It looks like Big Ben is in the background, but that sure is an abbreviated Houses of Parliament. But anyway, you can see the London Eye and a bus. So they're somewhere in London. If I were them, I'd be up in Bloomsbury, I'm just saying. You want to be near the British Museum in the West End. So in the meantime, they've got a rainbow in the background because Finch runs a promotion where people sponsor other people for a month. And apparently they reached one of their goals, and that's what the rainbow is, in case you're wondering. If you are interested in the wonder that is Cognitive Fiber Retreat 11.5, all the information, you can see a link right there. It says all the info is right here, and here is the link. This will take you to Ravelry, to the information thread. I do have a hotel reservation. I'm deeply looking forward to it. CFR 11.5 is February 7th, 2026. CFR 12 is November 14th, 2026. Mark your calendars, kids. And these threads will be developing, so do check back often. And you can see the information on how to register there as well. It is a whopping $10. What's on your hooks and needles, Gemma? Funny you should ask. Well, you may remember that I got very caught up in my souvenir hat with Loretta, the ones we both knitted from the SoCal Fiber Festival. You may also remember that I bought 2 skeins from that same dyer. This is Stunning String Studio. And the second skein I thought looked like a calico cat with patches of cream and pale peach and pale gray. Well, the picture doesn't do it justice. I'm going to say when you knit it up, it's just beautiful. You can see the third picture is the best way to see the color. And so I went back and I did the My Baker's hat, which is very like my typical watch cap, which is, I think, based on the Mariners Church watch cap, the Siemens cap. And I like the adaptations that the My Baker's cap makes on that a little bit. And I adapted it slightly. I think she does the decreases in quarters. I did it in sevenths. I like a much more gentle decrease on my caps. But otherwise, you can see it there. I did that really fast. I did it as my Thanksgiving souvenir. So there is my Thanksgiving calico hat there. And I'm very happy with that. In progress, the stash toss. As I just said, we're now at 96 skeins in and 138 out. That's 1 more out for this cap, and then 2 in for Laura's yarns that have not yet arrived, but I believe I've added them in. I have to check last episode to make sure I added 2 more there. As you can see, though, we're 42 ahead on the outside, so I'm pretty happy. 42 fewer than I had last year this time. Not much work on stuff because I got so hooked up into that hat. However, I have been knitting on the second sleeve of the Coco Strange Brew because I do need my popcorn knitting on the train. And I'm a good halfway down sleeve number 2. And then I will go on to the body. And then I will go on to the yoke. In the meantime, the coral I haven't touched, but I started experimenting with a pattern for the neck of another Fair Isle, another Strange Brew. Oh, Jasmine, you were so right. Jasmine Knitmore kept saying you need to do a Strange Brew, and she's right. I'm so addicted to the designing now. This particular one, I'm thinking of using the teal feather that I have from Rios, and I want to make it Christmassy. That's a bluish green, so I'm looking for colors with undertones of blue, and I'm looking at reds and pale reds, that is pinks and greens. I'm not getting very far, but I did decide to look at the patterns I wanted to do, which I'm very glad I did. And to do that, I found an old skein of a dark blue Knit Picks worsted weight in their Peruvian yarn. And I found an old skein of white, and I started using up the leftovers of the Malabrigo Rios colorway Virgo. I had a little bit of that left, so I started using that. And I was experimenting with doodle knits patterns from the winter set. And you can see my rough arrangement there of 3 different doodles. I haven't planned it a whole lot. I really just wanted to use up that Virgo colorway. And I wanted also to see the snowflakes that I want to put around the neckline of my teal green sweater, which I'm thinking should be Christmassy designs. I was going to do it all in snowflakes. I have to admit there is a doodle of Christmas lights, and I'm very tempted to do them on it. But there you see me working on, now, that middle one of the 3 patterns. You see the 3 cards from the Doodle Knit deck. That middle one is actually called Pine Boughs. I'm treating it like big snowflakes, but I realized it got pretty tedious. So right through the middle where there's little pine cones, yeah, I did that with a pink background. Maybe not my best idea. This, my friends, is why you knit yourself a quick little cowl with the designs and you experiment there. Because if you experiment on the neck of the sweater and you get something you don't like, yeah, not so good. The plan here is in 2 weeks, I will be at the Evolution of Psychotherapy conference knitting. happily in the back. That is the back row. And I'm very, very happy about that, believe me. And as I do that, what I will be doing is the boring stuff. And the first thing I want to do is the Romeo sweater. And that's going to be the teal green with the yoke, I think. So that's why I'm doing the winter doodle cowl, is I want to get a feel for what that looks like. And I'm not sure, now that I'm knitting it, I don't think I want to do that pine boughs pattern. There's a Nordic star, in fact there's a few of them, that I'm going to substitute in instead. Because what I really want, I either want stars or snowflakes. The pine bough, because when you look at it, you really can see those are meant to be some kind of flower or pine cone. And I don't want to work in a color, a third color. I want this to be a true Fair Isle. Now I could just do it in white, but that's what I'm doing on the winter doodle, and I'm finding it tedious. So color-wise, I might be adding some more stuff. When I started the winter doodle cowl, and you can see there's two pictures. One is the cards with the pattern I'm experimenting with. The other is the actual cowl. When I started doing it, I really was going to do it in just the Virgo as the color work and the dark blue as the background. And it got so boring so fast. Next thing I knew, I was doing white for the bottom pattern. Yeah. So this is why you do these little cowls. I suspect when I work on the yoke for my Christmas sweater, for my Romeo sweater, I suspect instead of doing a whole cowl, I'm going to do a mug warmer, because there is a blank pattern for that in the Basics collection from Pacific Knits that goes with the doodle patterns. As you can see, I'm deeply enjoying the doodles, wildly. I have a huge collection of them now. Meanwhile, you may remember over Thanksgiving how I was going to work on the quilt squares. No, because just too many other things were going on. Namely, I was half dead. I was so tired. So I didn't do any spinning either. And this leads us to a strategy. And the strategy is there's a lot of head games we all play on ourselves. And I just was reading a good one called the one-shot illusion. And that is that you have to get everything right the first time. You only get one chance at something important. The answer is that is really wrong. You almost always can get a do-over unless you're in a game. Like if you're playing a game of basketball, yeah, okay, you do have one shot. You're in the middle of a game with a clock ticking. But in most endeavors, you don't have a clock ticking. Most of the time, you can get a do-over. Not only can you get a do-over, but it's necessary to do things over. Failure is necessary. You learn from failure. And so creating this perfectionist standard that I have to get everything right the first time is going to make you insane. But more important, it's going to keep you from learning. And you do need to learn from your own mistakes. Why am I pointing this out? Because there's a really good series of studies on school children. And one of the interesting things is how girls learn versus how boys learn. And it's been connected over the years to a sort of sequence that because we teach boys one way and girls another, girls tend to form the one-shot illusion. Boys do not. What am I saying? Research shows that in the classroom, boys get more attention from teachers. Male teachers, female teachers, it doesn't matter. They pay more attention to the boys. So boys are always getting reinforcement about that. Mistake's okay, just move on, let's try again. Whereas girls don't get attention. So when they do get it, they tend to try to get it right on the first shot because the attention may not come back. Once they talk to the teacher may not be back to help them again. And so girls tend to form this one-shot illusion much more than boys do, according to research. Girls tend to be perfectionistic in school, and that means when they are learning, the other problem they have is they do not look at learning as I can get this wrong and do it over. Instead, they have to get it right the one time they hear it in class, the one time they see it in a textbook. They get very perfectionistic about needing to get everything right. What happens to that? Well, we also know bright students coast in the first few years of primary school. Oh boy, I could talk about this from experience, where a lot of bright students are just bored because it's too easy for them. That particularly in the early years, the teachers are talking to the part of the class most that is struggling the most with the basics like reading or simple math. And so the brighter kids are bored. And the interesting thing is there will be a moment where the bright kid suddenly does meet a challenge, but it may not be for a few years. So the interesting thing here is that bright boys and bright girls take on challenges differently according to our research. Bright girls give up if they don't get it the first time because they've had this reinforced logic of you're only going to get so much attention, so you better get it right the first time the teacher sees you because she won't be coming back or he won't be coming back. Whereas the boys are always getting this reinforcement. So bright boys actually handle that moment where they hit the challenge and they're not coasting anymore. They've got to really work at their studies. Bright boys handle that better than bright girls, talented boys, whatever you want to call it. And I see this all the time in therapy. This is not a 1 in a million. When I treat teenage girls in terms of their schoolwork, that's almost always their problem. That suddenly the schoolwork is challenging and they don't know how to accept that they're not getting it right just by looking at it. They don't just intuit it the way they used to. Boys don't come into therapy complaining about this. I find it kind of intriguing. Oh, but are there other reasons for that? Like maybe boys don't look at you as a teacher. Oh, get over it. Most teachers people have in primary through high school are women. Of course they look at me as a teacher. It's a really common transference in therapy for a kid to treat you like you're the school teacher, particularly when you're a girl. Okay, so what I want to get back to here is avoid that one-shot illusion. You have more than one shot at a problem. You can, most of the time, get a do-over. And not only can you get a do-over, you need a do-over. You must learn to fail. You must learn to recover from failure. You must learn to think your way through and problem solve. And this is particularly a problem for younger women. Oh, shoot. Well, I'm saying running again in the notes, but I haven't run in about a week because the beloved son and I did a turkey trot, as you may remember, on Thanksgiving. And it was a hard one and it was great. I did something that night in bed to my foot. I laid funny on my right foot and I woke up with it numb and I felt like I dislocated my right ankle. No, I didn't, but I was limping for a good 3 days. And I think yesterday, and as I say that, today is Tuesday, December 3rd, 2025. I think yesterday was the first morning I woke up where it dawned on me that I had forgotten about my ankle, that it wasn't hurting anymore, in other words. So I haven't run since then. Now, you may remember, we did the turkey trot on Thursday, of course, and on Sunday I was supposed to do the Santa Clarita one, but I didn't because the ankle wasn't right. You do not run injured. Meanwhile, we're having the windstorm from purgatory out there. We've had about 5 straight days of windstorming. So I am hoping this weekend that I will get a chance to go down out of the wind to Santa Clarita and run around the riverbed where you're sheltered from the wind in a worst case scenario. In a best case, there isn't any wind and it's warmer. Because I really do want to get back onto my schedule here. The last few weeks at work have been simply a madhouse, and I'm not going to explain why. It's a great job, but even on a great job, things can get terribly messed up. Having said that, you can see the calendar of my upcoming races. The Mardi Gras Madness is on March 1st. This will make me insane. So I still have not found the jingle jog of my dreams. Well, we'll see. It's a long time to go without a race to keep me on track. And that means I tend to not run, which really is going to get on my nerves. Okay, but you can see my schedule for next year forming up very, very nicely. I am missing the races from Better World Running that filled in my schedule in the last 2 years. They're no longer doing them up in Valencia for some reason. In the fluffy books, well, it's been very, very busy. I did finish Assistant to the Villain, and I'm listening to Apprentice to the Villain. I left the link into Assistant to the Villain because you can get to the series from there. I also finished A Daughter's Guide to Mothers and Murder by Diane Freeman, which is the 8th book in the Countess of Harley series, and they're just a lot of fun. And then I also finished reading The Benevolent Society of Ill-Mannered Ladies. This is a great book. It picks up a lot at the end. It never loses the pace. It's vaguely suspenseful. I realized I could not listen to it at night because you do have to attend to it. And it's sort of case history strung together. It's a lot of fun. Apparently, this was something Alison Goodman wrote while she was in a writing program for her master's. I don't know what school she was at. And so there is a sequel to it, which I think is the Road Guide to Ruin or something like that. Anyway, you'll be hearing about it soon. In the meantime, at night, I stumbled onto a thing called Lolly Willows. It's actually from 1926. It's a feminist novel. Very interesting. It's very, very interesting. It's very experimental. It's not at all what I thought it was. I thought it was just this peaceful little British book. It's not. It's about a single woman who she's raised in the country, and then her father dies and she has to move in with her lawyer brother in London. And she becomes that aunt in the small spare room who's there to help raise the kids. And she really has no life of her own. And so she becomes a little bit, I don't know how to say it, a little bit vague. She becomes so unfocused. And she lives a lot in her imagination. And her imagination is always calling her back to the woods. And she considers it her safe imaginary place. And one day she announces that she needs to leave. And what happens to her when she does is where it takes a strong right turn into feminism. It's a very smart book, but you have to wait for it. That you get about slightly over halfway through the book before Lolly is out in her bucolic retreat and her nephew shows up. And you realize he is the male version of what she is. But as a male, they both have small independent livings. As a male, he is encouraged and supported in this way, whereas she starts getting consigned to the weird category. And it goes on from there. It does get a bit weirder after that. And the part where she talks about Satan, I thought, well, I don't want to read something satanic or something. That's not my thing. But you begin to realize that she defines the world in terms of the way she was raised. And she's raised in this very upper-class male world. And as a upper-class female with an independent existence, she doesn't have a place anywhere. And so she starts to define terms. She doesn't have a word for what she's doing. So she says that she must have accidentally made a contract with Satan. You just have to read it. It's hard to explain this, but it is funny. And she just starts reading the world in her own way. And it is very funny and very poignant because what's really going on is you see how she is shut out of any definitions of any world she understands. So I finally give up listening to it in bed, and I can't even think what I'm listening to right now. Boy, I really can't. I was listening to a new one last night, and I'm darned if I can remember it. So anyway, I have to recommend Lolly Willows. It's not for every taste, but it's really good food for thought, and it really picks up when she gets out to, I think it's called Great Mop. And you begin to realize how much of a joke location names are and everything else. It's a very, very smart book. Something I really like. Well, that's going to be in Put a Lid on It. I'll come back to it. But I do want you to know I have loaded the back episodes of the new series, this series. We are working on 51 through 100, and they are loaded onto my Proton drive. They're not, I'm lying. As I speak to you now, the 91 to 100 zipped file is loading, and all the others are loaded, and it looks like we're going to have enough room to get 50 on for this month. So these new files are up for the month of December if you would like the compressed files for episodes 51 to 100. I am so sorry to the generous soul who said she could send me those 3 episodes from the original series. I think it was like 38 to 41 or 39 to 41. I just need breathing room. And you'll find out why in a minute. I should have gotten to it over Thanksgiving and everything was running haywire. So let me go back to something I really like and put a lid on it because 2 things and put a lid on it. First, the turkey bone broth. I want to bring that up because it's that time of year. And if you didn't get a chance to do it over Thanksgiving, I'm going to give you the setup so you can do it over Christmas, assuming you're not a Christmas ham kind of person. We always do turkeys. Well, we try to. I don't think we've got a Christmas turkey right now. We'll have to see if we can find one. First of all, we used an organic turkey no hormones, field raised, very nice. And the flavor was insanely good, as they always are. And when you make your turkey, you want to season it very nicely because you're going to need that stuff. So you want to do a good job putting seasoning on the skin because that goes into the bone broth later. Now, I will tell you, when you are cleaning up your turkey dinner, when you're in those last phases where the turkey is sitting on the countertop resting before you carve it, pull out your Instant Pot and or your crock pot, okay? Because now is the time to set all this up. And when you carve the turkey, you take the bones and stuff and you're throwing them into the Instant Pot and the crock pot. Because for me, it takes that much to get the broth because I have a lot of space to cook and a lot of bones. Okay, this year it took the big crock pot slow cooker and 2 rounds in the Instant Pot. That is 2 different sets of bones went into the Instant Pot. So what you want to do, when you carve the turkey, skin you don't want, anything that looks too crisp or whatever, bones, all that goes into your Instant Pot or your slow cooker. And then as you're putting the turkey on the table, you're going to fill up both the Instant Pot and or the slow cooker with water. The Instant Pot, you set it for 1 hour. You don't need to season it if you seasoned the bird well to begin with. But if you'd like, you can add chopped onion, chopped celery, chopped carrot to both of these or either of these. Okay, but you fill it with water. The Instant Pot, you set it on manual for 60 minutes. That should do it. Then you let it depressurize naturally, and you just let it sit there overnight because it's going to be really hot for hours. And then the next day you run it through a sieve or a strainer or a cheesecloth, and you have a ton of broth. The slow cooker, same thing. You can put everything into it the way you want to. You don't need to season it. Don't forget skin though. Don't forget gizzards and guts and all that. That can cook in there. Slow cooker goes on high for about 3 or 4 hours and then low overnight. So before you go to bed, switch it to low. When you get up in the morning, you turn it off and you let it cool. When it's cool enough, you scoop out the bones and then you run it through a strainer or a sieve or cheesecloth. How much did you get, Gemma? 6 gallons. My fridge is full of it. It's wonderful. We're already working our way through the end of the first gallon, using it for the shepherd's pies, making extra gravy, all sorts of things. In the winter, it makes a wonderful broth for ramen noodles. So you just chop some veggies and cook them in the water, or you can steam them and throw them in. Put a hard-boiled egg in it, put some chopped green onion, put some chicken bits or turkey bits or tuna, whatever you like. But it makes a really good base for your ramen noodles. So that is the turkey bone broth. You can do this anytime you roast a bird, chicken, turkey, or duck. And you'll get some really interesting stuff. Goose I've never tried it with. You don't hear about goose broth, which makes me wonder. But anyway, this is the basic recipe for making bone broth. And every time you roast a bird, you really want to do this because it is so easy and it's so much less expensive and less wasteful than buying bone broth. Meanwhile, the tea tastings, here's what I really like. The tea tastings of the Advent calendar from Plum Deluxe have returned. I have been through the first 3 days as I record this. Day 1, lousy name, incredibly good tea. This is called Brown Sugar Gray. So it's an Earl Grey variant. I put the tea bag there so you could see the little bits of blue in it, which tells you it's going to have bergamot. Okay, this is rooibos tea, orange peel, blue corn flour, and natural flavor. Boy, was this good. I have to say, I think this may be my favorite of their herbal Earl Greys. This was really special. What a lousy name, Brown Sugar Gray. It just sounds like a dank, wet thing that you'd find in a gutter, doesn't it? Or, curled up on the sidewalk in a rainstorm. But I have to say, the Brown Sugar Gray, I hope they add it to their regular rotation. It is a really good flavor. The smell was delightful. Vaguely bergamot, vaguely Earl Grey. Kind of hard to describe, but that note is there, and it's a very pleasant scent. The taste is everything you want. It's not quite Lady Grey in the sweetness, but it's very, very good. And remember, they don't add sugar as I say this. Okay, day 2 had lavender in it, so I won't be reviewing that. because I can't drink lavender. I'm allergic to it. Day 3 today, oh, another enormous winner. This was spiced berry cordial. Sit down for this ingredient list. Rooibos tea, apple pieces, hibiscus, candied pineapple pieces, rosehip, blackberry leaf, raspberries, cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, cloves, orange, ginger, 2 gingers? I don't know. Blackberries, rhubarb pieces, and natural flavor. Why you'd have to add any natural flavor to whatever that means to this, I can't imagine. Boy, is this good. I've got a cup of it next to me as I talk to you. It smells very fruity. And with all that ginger, I find that a little odd, but you can taste the ginger. There's just this slight lift in the flavor. So it tastes very fruity. They say spiced berry, candied berry, I would say. It's not real spicy, despite the name. It's just like a slightly lively berry flavor. What a winner. I hope they keep this in the rotation too. This is a really good one. So that is brown sugar gray and spiced berry cordial. Go to their website when they start to sell. At the end of the season, they always sell the teas that were in the calendar. Please do yourself a favor and go get these. Just so we're clear, I'm only doing the herbals. I don't drink the caffeinated ones because I got enough caffeine tea. Now, you may notice in the show notes below that is a picture of the beloved son. Because this year, I found an advent calendar for him. And this makes me really happy. The Lego Corporation sent me some email, and they had a Star Wars Lego calendar. It's all minifigures and little tiny bits of place settings. Not table settings, but I mean like bits of a scene that the minifigures might be dwelling in. So he's opening one of those every day. So far well, I don't know if anybody's going to be listening to this. By the way, this sold out really fast from the Lego people direct. I got mine from Best Buy. I ordered it and they shipped it really quickly, which was nice. I ordered it on the 30th of November and it landed here on the 2nd. So that worked nicely. So far I think he got, to cover the kids' ears, what did he get? He got an Ewok minifigure, a C-3PO they had to do a little building on, and he got a little piece of a setting that looks like a kitchen sink with some cups or something on it. We shall see. Whew, so we all have our advent calendars. On to the blather. Well, Thursday was indeed a very happy Thanksgiving. I should have a picture of the feast here somewhere, yet I don't see it. Hopefully I'll find it and add it. But Thursday, I was exhausted. The crazy week at work, the dentist appointment, all that stuff, all these pressure things happened. Seeing my doctor the week before that. And the crazy at work just keeps going, and it's on for at least another week or two, which is driving me nuts. Meanwhile, I came home from our race, and I sat in a chair and passed out. And my husband cooked a fabulous meal. He didn't even make me do dishes. He knew I was so tired, and he was kind of worried about that. So he just totally pampered us, and really I've got to get a picture of the meal in there if I can find it. It was just really, really nice and very peaceful. On Friday, I was still wiped out. So I edited the previous episode of this, and I ran some errands locally, but I didn't do a whole lot. I think I ran down to Barnes & Noble. Oh yes, that's right. And Barnes & Noble, I picked up some easy stocking stuffers, and I motored around Santa Clarita. Oh yeah, I picked up the race packets for the race on Sunday that we didn't do. So I did a flying run through Barnes & Noble, went home and said, I know what I really need to do. And that's what I did on Saturday. Saturday I went on the train, because I got to do that, you know. And I just went down to the Glendale Galleria, and I went to the big Barnes & Noble to get some serious stocking stuffers and to get the Yola Boca Flawed gifts. Now, Yola Boca Flawed, for those of you who don't remember, that is the Scandinavian tradition, I believe it's Icelandic, where on Christmas Eve you give everybody a book, and then you all sit up Christmas Eve, since you're not going to sleep anyway because you're excited about Santa, and you read your book and you eat or drink chocolate. So I took care of those requirements down at Barnes & Noble, and it was really nice. I mean, I just ordered what I needed. When I got off the train, I went in the store. They had it ready. Very, very nice. After that, I went over to Starfish Sushi, of course, and dropped in on the Little Knittery. And I'm just going to say the Little Knittery is great. It has become my brick and mortar. This is on Vermont in Los Feliz, Vermont. You're way north on Vermont is the best way to get this. And it's a really nice little neighborhood. There's a bunch of fairly famous local bars and show places. There's a great bookstore. It's just a great place. There's a bunch of really cute gift shops around it. It's so nice up there. I don't know how to say this any better. I keep using the word nice and all that. But what is great about it is it's walkable. That it's these shady streets you don't really expect to find in LA. And it is lovely to stroll up Vermont. And I go all the way down, I think it's Hollywood. And you go down to Hollywood, yeah, the one that leads you to, the Hollywood and Highland and all of the Hollywood museums and all that sort of thing. But you're at the eastern end of it where it curves, and I think it becomes Sunset. And just that curve, that is really the bottom edge of Los Feliz. And it's the walkable section with all these cute little boutiques and such. And I've talked about it before. And I love Vermont up there. I love to walk up Vermont, and then you walk up, and wow, how far up am I going? I can't even remember the name of the road I'm getting to up there. Oh, it's Los Feliz. That's right. You walk up the Los Feliz Boulevard. You turn right, and you stroll down that. And there's all sorts of cute little mom and pop places and coffee houses and stuff all the way down there till you get to the edge of Griffith Park. And I don't know how to describe it, the 5 freeway. It's just a very nice, very walkable area. On your left, as you walk towards the freeway, you will find the sort of expensive part of Los Feliz up on the mountainside by the Griffith Observatory. That's very nice if you're wealthy. But the very livable part is down where I'm walking around. There's just a good bunch of things to see in there. So I was strolling around that because the Galleria was, it's the local mall in Glendale, and it was a madhouse. And the Little Knittery was just a refuge at that point. And I did pick up a few more skeins, which are in the stash toss. On Sunday, I actually did a lot of work. In the notes, I say Z like I was sleeping. Not really. I came home. I worked on one of the bathrooms. I did what I would call puttering. And, did laundry, cleaned here and there in the kitchen, hit projects like the cat's litter box, whole bunch of things that just needed doing. So it was very, very nice. After that, you can find out I'm in the week again that's kind of overwhelming. But forget all that. I'll talk about it next episode. Right now, you can see our usual links to the LGBTQIA plus lifelines. I love that. Can I say this honestly? I love the idea that we can say LGBTQIA plus. Do you realize that in my whole life we haven't had that kind of freedom? Do you realize how amazingly liberating it is? Now, I'm straight as an arrow as far as I can tell, but it's really liberating that I can actually use that acronym, abbreviations, whatever you want to call it. And I feel like I'm finally talking about people fairly, that I've always known about, that have always been around me my whole life. And I'm mystified by all the resentment that those communities have gotten, because to me it's kind of like, isn't it great that we all can just relax now and everybody can just do what they need to do? Is that just me? But I can't tell you, as a 65-year-old woman, how liberating it is to say that here are things for our siblings in the LGBTQIA plus community. And that concept even exists now. Thank you, world. I'm glad I lived to see it. Having said that, there's the helplines for people in those communities having trouble, because just because they're not exactly like me doesn't mean they deserve anything but my love, kids. That's called being an adult, a mature adult. I'm not even going to go into what else that should be, but anyway, those of us who are working on maturity. You can also see my community resources, the books that I've used, the links to favorite things I like to buy, skills and techniques links, and you can also see the information for my friends who are in hiding from the ICE attacks. Yes, Americans have armies in their streets of other Americans. It's a disgrace, isn't it? Yes, it is. Anyway, so if you need the information to stay safe around ICE, there it is in my show notes. And you can see my calendar. You can see the evolution of psychotherapy is the next big thing that's coming up. Oh my goodness, in another 12 days. After that, well, there is my Christmas break, which I need to put on there. Strangely, I don't have it on my calendar yet. But after that, it's CFR 11.5. So many happinesses to look forward to. Minerva gets the last word. There she is. She is looking out the window at a sunset because I was talking to a patient and the patient just shrieked, "Look at the sunset." And I looked to my southern view out my window and there it was. These just bands of straight lines of beautiful yellow and orange and pale blue and deeper blues. And as I stood to take a picture for you, the cat photobombed it. And Minerva says, that's right, winter is coming in, winter is here, to quote the Anglo-Saxon, well, Middle English poem. And the cat feels the need to commune. That little light in the middle, that is a reflection of one of my lamps. That is not the moon or the sun or anything funky. Sure looks cool, though. It looks like Minerva's got her head in the sun. Minerva wants you to know that we're getting these beautiful sunsets as the wind blows and the weather cools because winter is coming. Isn't it lovely to celebrate this season of the year with all the people we love? Because Minerva would tell you that when we're with the people we love, we're in community. And when we take care of the community, we are taking care of ourselves. We are taking care of individuals. Having said that, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.